Lovely. Okay, so I've done lots of different episodes of this. I've mostly talked to poets. I've talked to one death doula, which was very cool, but I am just so beyond excited to chat to none other than Robert Bartlett, who is a alchemist, an author, and just all round amazing person. And he's brought his cat, who is such a cutie. Do you get like excited or like fan reactions a lot, or not so much, or anything like that?
Um, I do actually.
Oh,
Surprising.
that's pretty cool. I suppose it's a subject that people want to feel like they know. I suppose if even if you dangle the myth of like eternal life or anything, or like this discipline will help you do X, or this discipline will, people probably just, it probably just makes people go crazy. Yeah, my questions aren't in like a particular order. I just sort of just wrote what I thought of, so I'll just ask you. So the first thing I have written here is a bit random. Do you think it's a good idea to speak to astral bodies, like say, the planets in the sky, the stars? Because I had this experience where I just looked up at the sky and Jupiter was really bright in the sky, and I said, "Oh, in my head, like, oh, hi, good evening, how are you? It's good to see you." And then I got this feeling back that was like, you would talk to me, or like not that many people talk to me anymore. So I don't know, do you think it's good to engage the astral bodies?
I think it is,
Yeah.
certainly.
Yeah. Do you think that guidance can be given in dreams?
Oh, certainly.
Yeah.
And
Do you have
we're,
many dreams that help you with your work?
I do occasionally have
Yeah.
vivid dreams about work, but it
Yeah.
varies season to season.
Yeah.
But
Um,
definitely, there's a lot of paranormal activity around here.
oh yeah, well, that's it, isn't it? Paranormal activity. I know, I know that one. There's an idea floating around on the internet at the moment, the idea, the Jesus as homunculus. Have you seen this theory, and what do you think of it?
No, that's a new one for me.
Yeah,
Jesus,
yeah, yeah,
Jesus was a homunculus.
yeah. It's like it sounds insane, but then the way they explain it is like, I don't know, they just go into it, and it's really wild. But yeah, I suppose that there are these sort of internet phenomena that keep people going. So Real Alchemy lists like a time and a date for every herb. So when I was sort of going through that list, I then thought to myself, is would there be a time and a date for sort of presumably every plant?
That's the idea. Um,
Yeah.
everything everything has a vibratory rate, and they either tune into a certain planet or not. I mean, it's all in a matter of resonance.
Hmm.
A certain planet may resonate well with a certain planet, and that's how they determine correspondences that way.
Yeah.
So everything has its affinities for different planetary rates of vibration. Is the concept.
Hmm. I wonder how one would go about finding that out. Do you find that your life is, and with your practice, that your life is quote unquote strange, like signs, voices, direction, synchronicity, things like that?
A lot of interesting synchronicities. Yeah. My wife is Karen. She's much more psychic than I
Yeah,
am. So she picks up a lot more of that subtle
yeah.
influences, but very often strange synchronicities happen.
Agrippa referred to a miracle that happens when you work with gold, but it was like he never said, or at least I didn't catch on to that bit. Is it that the spirit of gold kind of reveals itself to you? Like there's a material, and then there's an entity, I want to say, like a spirit.
Yeah, they all do. and plants too.
Oh, okay, that's nice. Yeah, I did think that. I thought to myself, I wonder whether these things that people see when they take magic mushrooms, whether that is just the spirit of the magic mushroom.
To some degree, but there
Yeah.
are a lot of factors. I mean, your own subconscious knows more than you think. You
Yeah.
pick up on more than you're aware of usually. Um, I
Yeah,
think the
that's true.
mushroom enhances that ability,
Yeah, that's
and
very
you can
true.
access more of what you're unconsciously aware of,
Hmm.
a
Yeah.
gateway.
Yes, yes, very much so. Do you think that being worthy seems to be an important element when you practice
Do
alchemy?
I think of being worthy?
No, like
I,
is being worthy an important element?
you
Because it
froze
seems
up.
like, yeah, I don't know, it seems like that's sort of hinted at, yeah. Yeah, it seems like the text suggests that quote unquote being worthy, whatever that may mean, seems to be like an important element in the practice.
Um,
Maybe not.
there were concerns about trade secrets, things like that, always.
Yeah. Yes, well, it is very secretive, but I guess that's kind of what keeps people going. Okay, this is like one I really wanted to ask you. I don't know if it's real alchemy. I think it might not be. There's another book that I was working from, and it said you might not want to do this stuff at night. And I found that when I was working through real alchemy, weird things were happening. Like I was sleeping and I could hear something in the hallway, and it was like, it's I joke in my stand-up and I say that it sounded like a dog saying ice cream, but that's what it sounded. It was like, "Ugh," that sort of thing. And my children were saying that they were seeing, there was someone in their room, lots of night terrors and stuff. Loads of weird stuff happened. I could tell you lots of stuff. But I suppose, how do you protect yourself when you're doing these things?
Well, I have a whole army of Ushabtis. I have various protections around the property and the lab
Yeah.
and myself, but I think when you get to a certain state that things know well enough not to bug you.
Really, do you think? They definitely still bug me. I felt like while I'm doing something in one direction, there's something else trying to get in. And I wasn't sure about that. That kind of made me think twice.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So these like kind of historical figures that we study, like Falconelli, like Nicholas Flamel. Presumably, they were once regular men born of, ordinary mothers, and they walked the earth and had to eat and all that sort of thing. So I wonder, is there hope for everyone who sort of starts studying this that they can, you know, get to a good place with their practice?
Yeah, I think it's a goal for everyone. I mean, it's a hot topic these days of life extension and a lot of techniques and supplements out there to supposedly extend your life. So it's always been a very hot topic, and it's certainly one that drives a lot of people to the study of alchemy.
What do you think of the Book of Aquarius?
I like the Book of Aquarius. It's basically what we call the urine work, one of the subjects that we study in class here.
Hmm.
Um, it has a long tradition. Um, I wouldn't say it's the only way to go about things, but it is one of the more popular ways.
Yeah.
Certainly one of the less expensive and less dangerous ways.
Yeah. I kind of was curious and I thought, I wonder what would happen if you did the process in the Book of Aquarius, but with blood. I don't know why I thought
Um,
that.
it's that's possible. It's come up in suggestions before,
Yeah.
using blood or even using dew,
Ah,
the morning dew. Uh,
Oh, that's quite poetic, really. That's quite beautiful.
yeah, they've been both called the morning dew, urine, and uh, and the actual
Oh.
dew.
Yeah. My husband said that, maybe like amniotic fluid as well. But I suppose the fun thing is just experimenting and trying different things.
Yeah, the whole concept of animal works. I mean, we have vegetable works, and then there's the animal kingdom, and then
Mm,
there's the mineral kingdom. And
yeah.
sometimes people get turned off with the ideas of working with blood and gore,
Mm,
but they are long tradition behind using animal parts, blood,
mm,
bones, antlers, and such. So it has a long pedigree behind it. And a lot of people have chosen to walk that path using blood or menstrual fluids or urine or feces, even
mm,
their own or animals. It opens a whole range, but you can at least demonstrate that all three kingdoms are made the same way. They all contain a body, soul, and spirit. And you can isolate those into physical counterparts and purify those, put those together as medicinal agents.
mm. Yeah, because I know that the sort of the idea of the philosopher's stone is that it's a substance we all have. I don't know, so I guess that's what made me think of blood, but I suppose urine as well.
Yeah, it can be made a number of ways.
I know that there's like a historical account of Saint Genevieve, I think it was, and he was at a dinner party, and like the guests were saying he didn't eat anything, like, and I think there's like a Venn diagram of vampires and whatever they're calling red mercury, so no reflection, repelled by garlic, some sort of gold link there, whether it's like on the red mercury side attracted to gold or on the vampire side can't go out in sunlight, which is like the kind of gold as its metallic manifestation. So I wonder what you think of that kind of curious vampire overlap with alchemy.
Um, I've always thought there's a strong connection. Many of the ideas of you know, the vampire, the blood is the life, and in alchemy, uh, that's where we get the so-called alchemist mercury, the spirit, which is similar to alcohol from vegetable kingdom. And then there's a corresponding mercury from the metallic realm. But as far as the animal kingdom, blood is the source for that spirit, which can be then refined and ingested to enhance your own life force. And one of the first processes is separating out the red uh, corpuscles, and they call that the red earth. So, yeah, there are a lot of correspondences, I thought, between alchemy and the ideas behind vampires.
As a chemist, do you find that there's a like a war between alchemy and chemistry, or do you find that they correspond and that they make sense to each other?
In the past, there was a pretty sharp divide, a war between alchemists and uh, modern chemistry, but it's coming around full circle. And modern chemistry is discovering that the alchemists weren't quite so far off as they
Hmm.
thought.
Yeah, I noticed.
And the things they were speaking about critically, they're finding out in the laboratory to be true. We just use different words today. So I think as time goes by, modern chemistry and alchemy will come together in a mutual agreement on many terms and ideas.
Do you think that I think to myself sometimes, it it's not it, X, whatever, is not supernatural if it's in existence. Do you think that actually these processes, or what we call under the subject of alchemy, it was actually there to be practiced? If it was discovered, it was within nature and within the order of things for it to be practiced. It was part of the plan.
Yeah, in fact, I mean, alchemy is really an exploration of nature, how nature works, how it's put together, and all of the processes in alchemy mirror natural processes. Take distillation. It's very key and central to many processes in alchemy, and yet we see it every day. And in a stormy season, it's raining. That's water that has distilled out of the ground, and things sublimate out of the ground. All of the processes in alchemy mirror actual processes in nature.
Hmm.
So we have the ability to speed up nature and control when it's going to rain or be dry or hot. So we have control of those forces.
Hmm. It seems like when it comes to the subject of chemistry, there is an overabundance of information and like a overcomplication. But it seems like when it comes to alchemy, it's simplified or it's understandable or it just makes sense. Do you think that's true?
Yeah, in a lot of ways. I mean, everyone's a specialist these days. I only work on silicone compounds, or I only do organic chemistry or inorganic chemistry. Uh, to the alchemists, it's all what they call natural philosophy, and
Hmm.
they combine not just chemistry, but many other subjects, numerology, astrology, tarot. All of these were part of natural philosophy, and they were experts in all of that, not just some segment of it.
Yeah. Do you think it's like good to have a kind of an Aristotle kind of approach where it was all about observing nature, observing the very basic building blocks, and then that would give you the key that, would give you an idea of what was going on?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Paracelsus says you have to walk the book of nature to understand alchemy.
Mm,
You have to get out there and observe nature and see how it's working to get insights into how you're working and how to go about what you're trying to do.
mm. Yeah. How is it that people are or are they allowed to sort of practice without, you know, being I don't know, how is it that it's allowed? I think if alchemy does what it says it does, surely you wouldn't be allowed to to do it because, I think it's pretty obvious that we live in a very, even if you live in America, even if you live in the UK, it's a very suppressing society, and who knows who's in charge? I don't think there's any trust at all. And I don't mean that politically, I just mean I don't know what who or what better put is actually in charge. So I'd be very surprised if people are allowed to go along and find, eternal life.
Yeah, well, it's the information age, and things that were held very closely and secret are all out there on the internet. Books that, I never thought I'd ever see. I now own copies of them, in PDFs. There may be only six books in existence, and now there's a seventh.
Yeah.
Um,
That's the
there's
great.
It's always been that way that alchemists write purposely to confuse you. So you need to have something of an initiation into the language of alchemy,
Yes.
and there's a whole cryptic system of understanding the terminology and symbols that are used. One one substance may go under a dozen different names, and so you have to be able to sort through all of that
Yeah.
before you even begin working. So it kind of has its own built-in safeguards in that respect. People could try practicing, but without certain keys, they
Oh
end up
yes.
going in circles.
Oh yes. Well, I know that one. I think that's very, very much where I am. I think there's a kind of freedom in being no one and knowing nothing though, and I kind of feel like the fool is the sage, you know, not in you know not speaking personally or anything, but I feel like you know fools are sages, you know, in stories and stuff. So I don't know. I think there's a freedom.
No, I think the fool is the topmost card on the tarot trumps. Um, they're totally open and receptive to what's actually going on, and
Hmm.
they're not being bullied around or pushed around by other people's opinions. They don't really care. They're taking it all in and processing it on their own terms.
Hmm.
So, so I agree. I like, being a nobody and knowing nothing is a good place to be.
I wonder whether you have to be like a Freemason to start. There was like a centre near me because like the local like the Ramsgate Freemasons had like an open day and were like, yeah, just come down and you know just have a chat and things like that. I used to think that maybe you had to be of a certain racial or ethnic background to be part of them. I don't think that now. But you hear so many bad things about them that I just thought to myself, it's worth, you know, it's not worth trying to do anything with that. It's better to just live an ordinary life than, you know, sacrifice people or drink blood or, well, I mean, drink blood, you know, if it's yours, but, you know, things like that, really dark things.
Yeah, well, you can get into dark areas in alchemy. But as far as ethnicity, we've taught classes here for the last 20 plus years, and I think we've had every nationality on the planet here. And some are Rosicrucians or Freemasons, but it's not a requirement. I'm not a joiner. I haven't joined anything except,
Hmm.
you know, the Welsh witchcraft tradition from my wife.
Hmm. Yeah. It's just so, like we were saying, it is just so hard to start, and I think your journey's so amazing that you know you were able to basically go to school for it, and I bet you know I just know there's so many people out there that want to do that, but there's sort of no way in really, which is sad.
I had started a degree in chemistry before I went to the Paracelsus Research Society, and I dropped out to go there.
Mm.
And it was Frater Albertus who coaxed me back to going into school so that I could
Yeah.
come to work and do stuff at Paralab later on. So that was a great
Yeah.
suggestion.
Do you think there's like a certain personality that's best suited to alchemy?
You have to have a lot of patience
Hmm.
and, be of a somewhat studious mind. A lot of alchemists are bibliophiles, but you can only go so far reading books. You have to actually get your hands dirty and
Yeah.
do the work.
Yeah.
Uh, and it does take patience, and sometimes you have to try and try again certain things. So um, I think one of the main ingredients is having a patient personality and willing to stick it out.
Hmm. Yeah. I had a tarot reading and I was like just you know I just did it because it was at the pub and I was there to see a show and I was like okay well whatever so he said pick a card and the first card I picked was the star and I was like oh Cetera means star in Farsi and I said how many of those are there in the deck and he said just one and then it just went on it was just so weird anyway.
Was that recent?
Yeah, it was recent. It was so weird. That's like kind of why I read Real Alchemy, why I really wanted to talk to you, even though I'm sure I'm talking nonsense. Because it's just it and this was another thing that I wanted to ask you. Do you choose to do this or does it choose you? Because, you know, I'd happily sit on my sofa and watch movies and eat crisps, but but there's you know, something is always there. So I don't know.
I think it draws you in. I mean, you may start off with a a subtle interest, but then you start doing the work and it slowly draws you in and you want to know more and more and pretty soon you're an avid, alchemist. And that's what you do now. You live and sleep and eat alchemy,
Hmm.
because it becomes central. I mean, you see how it plays out in everyday life. You see alchemy everywhere pretty soon,
That's very true, actually.
and and so you just get drawn into that whole mode of living, the whole lifestyle, really.
Hmm. I think to myself now, and bearing in mind, just to reiterate that, I don't know anything, but I think to myself now, like, the world is not the world, or like, there's something underneath it. I don't know, like you say, you can see it everywhere.
Yeah. Well, you know much more than you give yourself credit for. Just asking the questions.
Yeah, I think it's just like just curiosity. But then I wonder about people that are interested in practicing and don't practice yet, and I worry about those people that are they drawn to it because they are lonely? Are they drawn to it because they are outsiders? Are they drawn to it because because they want power? And I think you need to look at it if you want power because I think that can be quite corrupting.
Yeah. Well, I think they're drawn in through all of the above, but they soon learn their place. I mean, if they're in for power, then things just don't work out.
Yeah.
But if they're in it for the right reasons to understand themselves or better themselves, you have a much more strong contact that will guide you along, and those little synchronicities will just start happening.
Hmm. I read a book called Invisible Helpers that was kind of about those synchronicities and those helping hands. You never think of like the spirit realm, or at least I didn't, as helping hands, like because all I've mostly had like negative experiences, but I suppose there are positive forces spiritually as well.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Have both sides of the coin.
Do bees come from cows?
Do what?
Do bees come from cows?
They can, depending what they eat.
Hmm.
If they, we have horses, and you know, we've had dead horses, and of course they generate insect life as they decompose. But a lot of times the grasses will have seeds or eggs on them, rather, and
Hmm.
they'll eat the grass and they poop out, and suddenly you've got a whole swarm of flies, you know, coming out of the excrements.
Hmm.
So it's generally it's possible that bees could be generated from
Because I know,
excrement.
yeah, because I know that the bee is like an occult symbol. I suppose a lot of things are. So to not have a reflection, you would have to absorb absorb all light. So I'm at the age of 33, I'm starting to realize that light is very important. So I've been thinking about sunlight and how the god of the sun in Egypt was called Ra, and then you have uranium, radium, radiation. And, the anti-parasitical nature of some sunlight is that also why certain energies don't do so well in the sun, or, where you feel safer in the sun. You never hear someone say like, "Oh, it was a beautiful sunny day on the beach and, I saw a ghost or I saw a demon or something." So, I don't know, I think sunlight is physically important and spiritually important.
Oh, definitely. Everything in here is generated from the sun.
Hmm.
Everything we could see around us wouldn't be here without the sun. But another thing about being invisible deals with refractive index. So when light enters a body, it bends. So you've seen, like, you put a pencil in a glass of water and the pencil looks bent.
Hmm.
because of the difference in refractive index of the air and the water. In fact, the book The Invisible Man, H.G. Wells, was about that, uh, making a compound that changed his refractive index so that he became had the same refractive index as the air. You
Hmm.
basically couldn't see him anymore.
H.G. Wells is fabulous, isn't he? He's amazing. I'm
Yeah.
starting to look at fiction differently now. I'm just thinking, are these books actually written by these people, or is it like fake authors and then obviously the books are real and they're put out there? Or are all authors occultists? Or probably the most likely option, are all authors absorbent? And so these themes and ideas sort of just come in and out of them. Because when you look at the occult and then you go back to all the fiction you read in your life, you think, there's something going on here.
Oh, yeah. The magic of yesterday is the science of today.
I
A
like that.
lot of occult or even fiction writers are they're kind of prophetic. Look at someone like Jules Verne. Long before it happened, there's submarines or breathing underwater, cities underwater, travel to space. Uh, he foresaw all of that long before any of it was even possible.
Hmm.
A lot of fictional writers see things in the future and make stories out of it.
Hmm. Are there any like famous female alchemists?
Oh yeah, quite a few. Uh,
Yeah.
Question always comes up in class is this a guy thing? Alchemy, and generally we have about 50-50 male female class students, uh, pretty well divided. But all through time there have been female alchemists. Maria Prophetessa in ancient Alexandria, um, Cleopatra,
Oh,
not the
wow.
queen, but someone else similar name. Cleopatra, the queen, actually wrote a text on cosmetics that had a lot of alchemy involved. Um, Nicholas Flamel, you mentioned, he and his wife, Brunel, both worked on producing the stone. So there are a lot of instances where females were heavily involved in alchemy, either by themselves or with their mate.
Hmm. I didn't know if there was some sort of like physiological reason why they wouldn't be able to practice. I don't know what I was thinking on that one. I'm convinced that J.K. Rowling is a witch because the alchemical references in Harry Potter are just, it's just everything is about alchemy in Harry Potter.
Oh yeah, I I like the Harry Potter series. It is very reminiscent of going to the PRS. I mean, it didn't look anything like that, but it had the same kind of air about it.
Hmm.
A real mystery school. But yeah, I agree. There's a lot of alchemy in the Harry Potter series, and more so if you know alchemy, you see it quite a bit.
Hmm. And then I think to
That's the
myself,
magic I grew up on.
yeah, I think to myself, how does she know? Like, there's something up with her. And also, who's allowed to be a billionaire without being somebody? What do you think of UFOs? It seems like this idea of like the metal spacecraft and stuff is maybe a little bit outdated now. But just to quickly say, my dad was an abductee. He was, between the ages of I think like 3 and 7. So yeah, what's your insight into them?
I believe they're possible. We've had students here who have cited UFOs in the sky. I had an experience here one evening, came out of my lab, and it was late at night, and I looked up at the sky, and there was this. I thought it was a plane going by, but it was moving much too slow. And I thought maybe it's a helicopter, but then suddenly it like rotated, and there were like beams that came down, and I could see the beams like headlight beams coming down right at the angle in my face. And it was there for maybe 10, 15 seconds. And then it rotated back up, and the craft, whatever it was, rotated and just disappeared. There were no running lights or anything. It just vanished.
Hmm.
So I believe in possibilities.
Yeah, I suppose it's about controlling fear, I guess. It's like that quote in June where it says, fear is the mind killer, and I do think that's very much true.
Yeah.
Does alchemy come from Egypt, Chem, and then before that Atlantis?
That's the leading theory as far as Western alchemy. Um, there are a lot of inscriptions in temples that we're fortunate today in that only the higher priests and pharaoh could see some of these writings on the inner chambers of many of the temples. And now they're all exposed to us if we can get them translated. But they contain a lot of the early alchemical ideas and certainly the technology of the ancient Egyptians fused with the Greek philosophy. And that really kicked off the whole beginnings of alchemy in the Western world.
Hmm. Are there any schools like the one that you went to left that people could go to and have a similar experience?
Well, our school, we have the Spagyricus School of Alchemy,
Hmm.
and we have both the online classes for people who can't travel, um, and then we have the in-person classes where you can come here and get hands-on training.
Yeah. I had this vision. I'm at the point where I'm either going to have to accept that I'm schizophrenic or I'm going to have to accept that the supernatural is real. And I think for my own sake, I'd prefer it if the supernatural was real.
I would say believe it is real. It is real.
Yeah. I had this vision where uh I was in the dark and a car pulled up and its headlights weren't headlights, its headlights were moonlight. And then a voice said, not too much moonlight. So then I started to like try and work with the sun more. I started drinking sun water and I tried to sort of deal with the sun more.
Yeah, we get messages all the time. It's whether we act on them or not.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that is very true. Thank you so much for talking to me. I'm sorry that I have no idea what I'm talking about, and I hope it wasn't too boring for you. But it is really such a pleasure to talk to you, and I've enjoyed your work so much, and I'm definitely going to check the online school out. Thank you for taking the time out of your schedule.
yeah, thank you so much for having
Thank you
me.
so much. Have a wonderful evening or day or however it works there. Take care.
Okay,
Best
you
wishes.
too.
Take care. Bye bye.
Bye bye.